What's up everyone? In today's video, we're going to be upgrading the OEM style switches that I currently have on the 3rd gen Toyota Tacoma with a new modular switch panel system from Guild Outfitters. This new modular switch panel system should allow me to run more switches on the Tacoma to the left of the dash panel, in addition to giving me flexibility to upgrade in the future as I continue to upgrade the Tacoma. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, but let's go ahead and jump into the install. Alright, so here's an overview of everything that I'll be installing to upgrade my OEM switches on the Toyota Tacoma. The first item that we're going to have is this modular panel that will replace the factory trim panel. These panels come in a variety of styles to accommodate whatever switches that you want to install. In addition to that, we have the modular insert. Again, these come in a variety of different styles to accommodate the types of switches that you want to install. For example, this one is a 4 long switch modular insert. You can also buy a modular insert to accommodate an actual switch controller, like an aux beam switch controller, that will also fit inside of this modular switch panel assembly. In addition to those items, I have some blank inserts that will allow me to cover the holes until I add more switches as needed. You can purchase these inserts for both tall switches and small switches, and these switch blanks will just cover up the holes that you don't use until you're ready to change them out. Here we have a trim removal tool that we can use to remove the trim. And then over here we have some daisy chain harnesses, and this allows you to just plug and play all of your switches so that the illumination function will all be controlled automatically without having to wire anything up or splice into any of the factory wires. Here we have our switch illumination harness. This harness actually plugs into the cargo light switch connector. Even if you don't have a cargo light on the Toyota Tacoma, the connector is behind this panel, and you can use that connector on any 3rd gen Toyota Tacoma to plug in the switch illumination harness, which will make all of your switches plug and play. As you can see, I've got a few daisy chain harnesses for each of my switches, and then over here we have the 3 switches that I'm going to install today. One for my ditch lights, one for my demon eyes, and one for my hidden light bar. So now that we've gone over everything that I'll be installing, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the old switch panel that I have on my Tacoma and give you a side-by-side comparison of my old setup versus the new setup. So here's a quick look at my current switch setup on the Toyota Tacoma. I do have all of these already wired up and ready to go. The new modular switch system by Guild Outfitters will allow me to organize the arrangement of my switches as needed. And again, they have a lot of different variations to accommodate your particular setup. So make sure to check out their website to see what they have available. In order to remove the trim panel, you'll just need to use either a trim removal tool, or in my case, I like to use a pocket screwdriver, and you'll just pop the panel out of the dashboard. If you'll notice back here real quick, this is the connector for the cargo light switch. Now again, if your Tacoma does not have a switch for the cargo light for the bed of the truck, this connector will still be here, and this is what we'll use the switch illumination harness to connect to in order to piggyback off of this connector and power up the illumination for all the switches. Here's a quick comparison between my previous switch setup on the left and my new modular setup on the right. As you can see, with the original setup, I only had the capability of running a maximum of 7 switches, but on the right, with the configuration that I wanted for my Tacoma, I now have the ability to run up to 9 switches within the same space. So there's plenty of different configurations that you can choose from. They're all compatible with the 3rd gen Tacoma. So if you are interested, definitely check out Guild Outfitters website. I'll have a link in the description below to see what setup best suits your needs. This is a perfect setup. All of the switches are interchangeable, so they'll be able to be used. I can transfer all of these old switches over to the new modular setup if I wanted to. I even still have space on the bottom right hand side to install 2 small OEM style switches as I continue to add accessories to the Tacoma. Alright, so here are all the harnesses that we're going to use for this switch panel setup. On the left we have our switch illumination harness, and all this is going to do is connect to that factory connector that you'll find behind the trim panel. We'll connect the switch illumination harness right here, and it just plugs into place. This back connector will connect to the factory connector behind the trim panel, and then right here is our first connector. If you're just using one switch, you can plug this in directly to the first switch in order to power up its illumination circuit. However, since we have 3 separate switches, what we're going to do is use a daisy chain harness. We're going to plug in the daisy chain, and then we will plug into our first switch. Now that we plugged into our first switch, we're going to use another daisy chain harness and plug into our second switch. So this is what it's going to look like on the back side. Now, as far as each of the daisy chains are concerned, you have 2 wires on each daisy chain that aren't connected to anything. This is the part where you will have to do some electrical connecting, and to put it simply, the green wire for each daisy chain will provide voltage to the switch, and then the red wire will be connected to any aftermarket accessory that you have. So when you press the switch, the 12 volts will come down the green wire, the switch will be connected, and it'll send that 12 volts to the relay for your accessory. So this is the signal wire that gets put to the relay that controls your accessory. So with this setup, you only have to worry about 2 wires per switch as opposed to 4. And the reason they did this is to allow you to be able to power the switch however you desire. For example, if you want to send power to the switch only with the key on, then you would connect this green wire to a fused source that only has power when the ignition is in accessory mode or the on mode. In my particular setup, I have my switches to be hot at all times so that I can use my accessories even with the car off. So you would just connect this green wire straight to the battery with a fuse in between the battery and this wire. For example, for that green wire for each switch, I do have them all spliced together and connected to one wire that goes through the firewall and up to this auxiliary fuse panel. If you want to learn more about this fuse panel, I also have a video of this, so make sure to check out my channel or the link above, and you can learn more about this fuse panel. But this fuse panel is just connected directly to the battery, so this fuse panel is hot at all times, and I have my one wire that feeds all of my auxiliary switches with this 3 amp fuse installed. So you always want to make sure with your switches, when you're supplying power to the switches themselves are not going to have any more than 3 amps running through them at any given point. Switches are designed to just send a signal to a relay, and when you activate that relay with the switch, the relay sends all of the main power to your accessory. And then the red wire for each of the switches gets run back through the firewall and connected to the relay that controls my aftermarket accessories. Okay, so here is the final layout for the modular switch panel that I'm going to do for my Tacoma right now. Obviously, you can tell we still have 2 extra spots for the small or short switches that I can expand to in the future. So now at this point we're ready to install. However, there is one more crucial piece of information that you need to understand about these modular switch panels. And that is, when you go to buy the panel and the module insert and everything, you're going to have 2 different options to choose from. No matter what variation you decide to pick, you're going to have two different options. There's going to be a no-cut option, which means that this switch panel system will replace the factory panel with no modifications whatsoever. It will snap right into place. You don't have to do anything extra. And then you're going to have your regular option. Your regular option will not say no cut. It will just show the option for the switch panel and module insert. And so this one, for example, is a regular option. So that means I need to modify the dash behind this trim panel. So I'm going to use either a box cutter or this little hacksaw that I use for metal. It'll cut through plastic just fine if I can fit it in there. And I'm going to cut these two ears on the top left and top right off, so that way I can have my switches actually clear and fit into this switch panel hole that's over here. So here's what it looks like after I made the necessary cuts so that the switches can clear on the inside. Make sure to take extra care and not actually cut any wires, because there are wire harnesses behind here. So go slow and steady. Definitely make small cuts and cut out small little pieces at a time as opposed to one big piece like I did. It'll make your life a lot easier if you just take small cuts. So now that everything is cleared, I should be able to plug out all my switches back in and pop the modular switch panel into place. That's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Don't forget to like, as it really helps the performance of the video, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see future installs and modifications on the 3rd gen Toyota Tacoma. I appreciate your time and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.